one of the things that I have found, not just with learning languages, but with learning anything new, is that it's very easy to get to a plateau, and it's very difficult to push through that and keep learning and keep sort of discovering new things about whatever it is that you're learning. And I'm sort of in that process with German. I've gotten to a very comfortable stage where I have no problem communicating, but it's difficult for me to keep learning new vocabulary and a new sort of concept, which I'm trying to do. And I have come across a few new words, new concepts in the last year or so, which I found very, very difficult to translate into English and to really get a deep understanding of these terms. And it really helps me to talk about this here with you guys, and hopefully we can help each other better understand these concepts. The first word that I'm really struggling to articulate is this idea of Zweisamkeit, loneliness for two when translated into English. I think Zweisamkeit builds on two, if not three, sort of concepts or words. So we have Einsamkeit, which is loneliness. We have Gemeinsamkeit, which is sort of shared interests. And there is also Zusammengehörigkeit, like this sense of belonging. And these three kind of words make up the base for Zweisamkeit as I see it. And the best way I can explain this is, I'm sure we've all had friends who were single and used to really do a lot of stuff together. We would meet them maybe very regularly, and they then meet someone, they get into a relationship, they fall in love, and you never see them again. They just sort of get addicted to this person and they have no interest in meeting anyone else. And this is how I see Zweisamkeit a little bit. It's not always to do with romantic relationships. It can also be at work. Maybe two colleagues really gel and they really sort of get into a state of flow. And if someone else comes in, then that's like disturbing the Zweisamkeit, and then they can't function well when someone else is present in the room. I'm struggling to really comprehend this concept in sort of the English side of my brain, because I see these base words which build up the Zweisamkeit as sort of opposites. Einsamkeit is really something that is done alone, otherwise it's not loneliness. Maybe it has nothing to do with Einsamkeit. Maybe I'm just sort of conflating these two words because they sound very similar, but we don't really have a proper translation for this, in my opinion, in English. The next concept is also a funny one, and it is Zweckgemeinschaft. And I've known these two words separately for quite a long time. Zweck as in kind of like a deed or action, and Gemeinschaft as in community or society. But together they sort of describe this concept of having a relationship or a community which is really only based around a specific thing, and outside of that thing you don't really meet these people, you don't have anything else to do with them. Kind of like a mutually beneficial relationship, which is really kind of transactional, at least in the way I see it. So this is often translated as a community of convenience, which I don't like, because convenience for me is often conflated with fast food and consumerism, and I don't think it has anything to do with that. So the way that I understand this is Zweckgemeinschaft is a group of people, or I think it can also just be one person. You meet for a specific activity or a specific purpose, like playing a sport together, maybe football, or learning a language together, maybe like a language exchange, but then you don't really meet them outside of that activity. The relationship doesn't evolve, it doesn't progress. And maybe I'm getting this wrong, but it sounds like quite a German concept, because I think in the UK this would not really be possible. Like if you meet someone to play football, you will inevitably then like go for drinks afterwards, and you will definitely get to know these people, I think, a little better, and it will not just be focused around this activity. I think it is referring to the people which you do these things with, and that the relationship remains very kind of transactional and doesn't develop. A term that I've only come to know in the last 2 years is Querdenker. Now, Quereinsteiger is a term that I learned fairly early on, and Quereinsteiger, at least in my opinion, has very positive connotations. That seems something pretty good. It's referring to somebody who sort of pivots, does a lateral move, and gets into a different profession or different career through like a side door without having studied the subject or gotten any proper qualifications. They just kind of make a lateral move. And Querdenker is also kind of like a lateral thinker. And in the English language, this is also seen as something very positive. I remember when applying to university and having to write these personal statements, lateral thinker was like one of those things, one of those buzzwords that you kind of wanted to try and include in your personal statement because it really sort of made you stand out from the crowd. If you're a lateral thinker, it means you think outside of the box, you have original ideas, you see the world differently, you're just kind of in a way more innovative and different. And unfortunately in German, Querdenker is not that at all, so it has gotten a very negative reputation. I think only recently, in recent terms, it used to also be kind of a positive thing. But you can't really use the word Querdenker these days without kind of thinking of political dissent or maybe some sort of deep insurgency. And so it's not really possible to equate this with lateral thinker anymore. I don't think this is a very accurate translation because the meanings are really quite different. In that respect, I would see a Querdenker as more maybe like a disturber of the peace, or just someone that is a nuisance to society. Another term that I learned very recently is Unwort, which also is quite interesting because it just means like non-word or not a word. And it's referring to words which the Deutsche Gesellschaft für Sprache deems as not valid or not proper words. And I mean, I suppose you could say non-word in English, that's a non-word, that's not a word. But it's not really something that you hear a lot, and it's just a funny concept talking about something that is not a word, using words to describe this concept. And another term that I've come across fairly recently is Weltanschauung. And this is often translated as world view, which I suppose is accurate from a very literal translation, but I don't think the meaning is really the same. So worldview is really just used very often to describe the way you look at the world, your frame of reference, the lens you look through. But Weltanschauung is actually a strand of philosophical thinking. It's quite a complex, comprehensive, sort of philosophical framework. This is based off the works of Wilhelm Dilthey. I'm going to probably butcher his name. I'm not sure what the correct pronunciation for that is, but he was working, around the late 1800s up until 1911. And with Weltanschauung, he was looking at the world and how the human sort of fits into the world in general and what the human experience means in the world at large. He was basically trying to do for the human sciences what Immanuel Kant had done for the natural sciences. So I can't really think of a better translation other than worldview. It is kind of accurate, but I think in the German sense it goes a lot deeper and it's a lot more complex and all-encompassing. So these are just some words, some terms that I've been thinking about recently. How would you define these things, and would you add anything? Thanks so much for watching, as always, and I will see you very soon. Bye-bye.